fellow Trek Chatters, I'm Pit Trekkie, and welcome to another episode of Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. So, couple things. So it's been a little while since my last video. It was actually last August that I last posted here on YouTube. A lot of that was I was phasing out of my full-time job and coming to my private practice full-time, which I've now been doing for 3 months. So now that that's stabilized, I actually have the time to be able to start doing videos again. So I'm looking forward to posting online again. So basically this is a perfect time to actually start doing the videos because a week ago today was the second season premiere of Star Trek Picard. Just as a side note, I actually recorded my review of this episode on another device a few days ago, but for some reason the last couple of days I couldn't get it to download. So I actually, even though episode 2 of Picard aired today, I haven't gotten to watch it yet, so I just want to do my review of episode 1 since I have to refilm it. And then I'll watch episode 2 and hopefully get that review up as soon as possible. So I will basically say I absolutely loved the season premiere of Picard. The characters were actually in a totally different place than they were the whole season 1, and even though I liked the first season of Picard, the characters were all miserable, brooding, dark, just not in a good. None of them were in good places at all, except for Soji, and then she actually started to spiral when she found out what she really was. You know, but we're actually in a place now where the characters, ever since the season finale, have kind of grown and have actually become happy again, which we'll get into here in just a little bit. So basically what I saw in this episode were 2 basic stories going on. We were getting reintroduced to all the crew members, what they're doing now, and it sounds like the theme of love is going to be a real big theme of what's going on. So basically the episode started out as Picard was at his chateau. It was the, I guess the grapes were ripe and they were making the new wine. There seemed to be a spark of romance possibly happening between Picard and Laris. We found out that her husband had died a year and a half previously, so she wanted to know why he's never settled down with anybody. And he never really said anything about it. But we did see in flashbacks that there was some issues, I guess, with his mother and his father. He and his mother went into some sort of atrium or whatever, and they were going to create their own little kind of world together. And through flashbacks, it looked like possibly that his father was very abusive to not only him, but also abusive to his mother. So they didn't really go very far with that, but it kind of implied that that's the reason why he could never fully love. Because of this type of abuse that he was exposed to growing up. But we'll see how that plays out throughout the season. So what we also found out in the episode was that there was some sort of subspace anomaly, which is very typical in Star Trek. Some sort of spatial anomaly happens. So Starfleet sends a fleet out there to see what's going on. They find out that there's multiple languages that are overlapping each other, saying the same phrase. Help us, Picard. So Picard, who's now Chancellor of Starfleet Academy, goes to see what's going on with this anomaly, and here a Borg vessel we've never seen before comes through. Basically, the Borg Queen beams aboard the ship that Picard is on, which happens to be the new Stargazer, which is commanded by Captain Rios. And she starts to try to tap into the systems because apparently this new Stargazer is equipped with Borg technology that was inspired from the Borg artifact from season 1. She starts tapping into it, so Picard sets the auto-destruct, and right before the ship blows up and then the fleet goes, the Borg Queen looks at him and says, "Look up," which is the same thing that Picard's mother had said to him earlier in the episode. So it makes me wonder, is his mother this new Borg Queen? It might be a thought that's completely way out there, but you know, Star Trek's known to have many different twists and turns, so who knows? So again, that'll be something to watch as season 2 goes on. But instead of Picard blowing up with the fleet, he actually wakes up in an alternate version of his chateau, and where he encounters Q, and Q basically says to him, "The trial never ends," which is an homage to the trial that went on in Encounter of Farpoint and All Good Things in Next Generation. And obviously in All Good Things, Q had even made the comment, the trial never ends. So I guess this is the next part of whatever trial for humanity Q has had going since the beginning. So here's some key points about the episode. So obviously, like I said earlier, I really like that the crew actually seems to be happy. You've got Picard, he's in his new android body, which they didn't really discuss. I think it only came up once in the episode. But he's happy at his chateau, he's doing fine. There's some romantic possibility between him and Laris. Picard is now also Chancellor at the Academy. Raffi is now back as a commander in Starfleet. She gets assigned to the USS Excelsior during the episode. And she's also been a mentor to the first Romulan cadet, who is Elnor. So see, he seems to be doing very, very well. Let's see, who else do we have here? Rios is now captain of the Stargazer. He seems happy back in his Starfleet uniform, back aboard Starship again. We find out that he lent the La Sirena to 7 of 9, who is still working with the Fenris Rangers. So we saw a little bit of her trying to defend some medical supplies on board the La Sirena. Then we also encounter Soji and Dr. Jurati on Raritan 4. It's a planet with Deltans on it in the Beta Quadrant. And so basically, Soji's going around talking about synths and how kind of like reintroducing them into mainstream society and through different seminars that she's giving. The only character who really doesn't seem happy is poor Dr. Jurati. She's getting drunk while Soji's having this meeting. Some Deltan starts to try to hit on her and spend time with her, and we find out that she was acquitted of the murder charges from Bruce Maddox because of the temporary alien insanity that happened with the mind meld with Commodore O. We also find out that she and Captain Rios ended their relationship as well, but it was actually her who actually ended the relationship for whatever reason. But Rios ends up coming to Raritan 4. He contacts Dr. Jurati for help. They detected that subspace anomaly, and they find all the different languages that are overlapping each other that say, "Help us, Picard." She's able to actually figure that out. So he goes to the anomaly, 7 of 9. She and Emmett, the hologram on board the La Sirena, they go to the anomaly. And then Picard doesn't even seem to know anything about it until an admiral comes to see him and plays the "Help Us Picard" thing for him. So he obviously goes out and sees that. But overall, the crew, the cast of characters actually finally seem to be in a good place, which they weren't in last season. I already talked about love as a secondary story and about Picard with Laris that seems to be budding. He actually goes into San Francisco, into the Forward District, and goes to address number 10, so 10 Forward. He actually talks to Guinan, and he's trying to seek answers as to why he has not been able to love. And Guinan tries to guide him through that. But when she asks him about anything that he's ever gone through, he shuts down. He doesn't say anything, which Guinan obviously picks up on. And I'm sure she knows to some degree something that's going on because of those extrasensory perception that she has that we've known over the years. It was really great seeing her back. Whoopi Goldberg as Guinan. Felt like she just kind of left off where she did when we last saw her in Star Trek Nemesis. Another key point of the episode is the return of the Borg. So again, I know a lot of people online were saying, "Oh great, we got the Borg being brought in yet again." But you know what? The Borg has never really been fully addressed since the end of Voyager. And they even mention in the episode about Voyager decimating the Borg Collective in the end of the episode. So we don't really know what's been going on. Yes, we saw the Borg artifact in Romulan space, but we don't know really how far the Borg had been affected by what happened in Voyager's finale. So it'll be interesting to see how the Borg play into this story. Now, what I'm concerned about is is this going to be a season where at the end they're going to reset and none of this with the anomaly and the Borg ship and any of that ever happened? Because remember, if Q's really involved in this and is creating this issue that's going to be going on throughout the season, and it causes a change to the timeline, they have to go back in time and fix it, which we already know from the previous trailers that came out. This could all end up resetting like All Good Things did. It went right back to the very beginning of the episode, none of it happened. So I'm really hoping that's not the case. I'd like to see more of what's happening with the Borg and how they might become a potential threat again to the Federation or to the rest of the Alpha and Beta Quadrants. Obviously, Q is going to be a big point in this season because he's created a whole other trial for Picard. And we'll see how that plays out, besides just knowing that he changed time and caused the Federation to become a totalitarian regime rather than it being the peaceful, benevolent Federation that we know about. So those are the basic key points from episode 1. So some of the likes that I really enjoyed in this episode, the new theme song at the beginning of the season, or the beginning of the episode, and in the end credits. So yes, you can hear the Borg or the Picard theme in the new version of the song. It's definitely kind of picked up and it's up pace, I guess. Basically kind of talking about the perils and the issues that are going to be, and the dangers that are going to be happening throughout this season. And definitely felt like that in the end credits song. I prefer the original Picard theme. I wish they would have kind of kept to that overall. But really what the music reminded me of is the change in theme music on Enterprise's 4th season in A Mirror Darkly for the Terran Empire episodes. So that I thought was kind of like a neat little kind of nod to those 2 special episodes of Enterprise. The new Stargazer, I absolutely love. I love the Sagan-class ship. The sets are beautiful. The bridge is nice and spaced out. It's definitely got some nods to some of the other ships. There's a railing behind the captain's chair and the first officer chair that kind of reminds me of the horseshoe on the Enterprise D. The fact that the chairs are the captain and the first officer, and there was another chair I believe there as well. It's kind of like an homage to the other Enterprises plus Voyager. The fact that the chairs are up on a pedestal as a nod to Generations. The technology looks like the familiar Next Generation LCARS interfaces that we've seen throughout the Next Generation era, but the color scheme's changed a little bit, and it looks like even the shape and look of it is kind of changed a little bit, so it looks like it's actually the next step up, which is what they needed to do, is to actually look like, yes, there's a continuation, but yet things are growing. The new view screen was perfect. It's not like the typical view screens that we've seen before. Yeah, it looks like what it was on Discovery, but that's another story. But it fits in this episode. I also like that the ship is modified with some sort of Borg technology from the artifact. It made me kind of wonder, too. They said about just the Borg artifact, but Voyager came home and had different Borg components in it as well. So after Voyager returned from the Delta Quadrant, was any of that technology researched or put into any of the other ships? It was also very interesting about how the Borg Queen was able to use those tentacles to come out of her back, tap into the Stargazer's Borg technology, and it actually basically worked toward her getting control of the entire fleet. That was interesting, but again, it got cut off at the end, so we don't really know what happened, except that there was just an explosion. Let's see here. The fleet. I really enjoyed actually having a full fleet behind the Stargazer. The creators and the developers of Picard definitely listened to the fans at the end of Season 1 when they had the Zhang He that was commanded by Captain Riker, but every ship in the fleet was the same class of ship. So it looked like they had just kind of cut and pasted all those different ships in there. This time they actually brought some old class of ships in. There were some Sovereign class ships in there, Akira class ships, but then there were also a bunch of new classes that they came out with also, like the Sutherland class, the Reliant class. I can't remember most of them off the top of my head, but there were some of the ships were actually ships designs that were in Star Trek Online, which are now officially canon. So Twitter kind of blew up about that, and I can see why. So they really outdid themselves, the creators, the content creators, making this feel like it was a part of what's come before with the Next Generation era and introducing us into the 25th century. Can you believe that we're in the 25th century now? It's very exciting, very exciting. Another thing I really liked about the episode was learning a little bit more about Romulan culture. So at the beginning of the episode, when Laris and Picard were talking, they were talking about the death of Zhaban. We learned that in Romulan society, couples are actually bonded to each other or promised to each other at birth. And she said that she and Zhaban actually had learned to eventually love each other. But she said that after a spouse dies, or during their marriage, Romulans love very deeply. And then when a spouse dies, they will honor that spouse by loving again and loving even deeper. And so that's kind of where we saw the connection she was trying to have with Picard. And we had never heard about that with Romulan culture before, so that was actually something interesting to learn that was added. The other thing that I liked, actually it's more of a question mark of whether or not I like it or not, was the new look of the Borg Queen. She looked like Emperor Georgiou, in my opinion, just kind of covered in a black coat, leather coat, and she had like a face mask / hood on, completely concealing who she was. Even Dr. Girardi said, well, that's different, and it certainly is different. It's kind of odd that the Borg Queen would kind of have that kind of aesthetic. You know, it doesn't seem like something that the Borg would really be worried about, is that kind of aesthetic. But I wonder if there's more of a hidden meaning behind that. Again, I'm wondering if I know it's out there, but I'm wondering if this queen is actually his mother. We don't know. There was nothing in canon that ever said that what happened to his mother. So, did she end up disappearing one day? Did she fake her death? What happened? Or was she kidnapped? One of those kind of things. I don't know. Again, I might be out there, but I'm wondering if that was part of the look, was to conceal that. Another thing that I was thinking about is, what if that Borg Queen is actually Q? Because if Q's creating this whole scenario, okay, maybe that was him hiding his involvement at that point. Certainly wouldn't put it past Q to throw a wrench into it. But I guess we'll find out. We got 9 more episodes to go this season. Overall, so I have a few questions. I think we already talked about Picard's mother and father, if there was any kind of hidden meaning, if she ends up being the Borg Queen. I guess another question is, what happened to the Borg? I hope that that little bit of what we had at the beginning of this episode about them being decimated, that we're going to get a little bit more about that. I mean, it may not really play into the narrative of the rest of the season, but I'd like to know that just for my own knowledge, how much damage did Voyager's crew cause them at the end of the series? Let's see here. And then the last question I have is, again, will this entire season reset? And I'm really hoping not. I don't like full episode and full season resets, because it just kind of takes away from everything that we had just seen, because it never technically happened. But I am really looking forward to seeing what caused the Federation to become this totalitarian regime. What is this totalitarian regime like? Because I'm sure we're going to see pieces of it. Yeah, I think those are pretty much the only questions that I have. And what happened in the past? We know they're going to be traveling back to 2024 to repair the damage to the timeline. So what was it that was done in 2024 to trigger all this that led it astray, rather from what we've known of the Federation? So that's basically it. I'm going to watch the second episode tonight after I have 3 hours of therapy sessions with clients, so I got to do that first, and then I'm going to watch the episode later. But let me know what you guys thought of the episode. Please, down below, if you feel inclined to do so, please put some comments down. You can follow the show on YouTube. Obviously, you can just go to my channel, go to YouTube, type in Pittsburgh's Trek Chat, and it'll take you directly to my channel. You can follow the show on Facebook, facebook.com/Pittsburgh's Trek Chat, and then you can also follow the show on Twitter at PGH Trek Chat. I'm looking forward to the next episode with all of you, and until then, may yins live long and prosper.